Hello, everybody. Hope you're having an amazing day today. My name is Steve. This is my wife, Lindsay, and we are going to be reacting to 8 ways British and American education systems are very different. This is a topic that Lindsay's been wanting to explore for quite some time now, and we're trying to figure out what video to go with, and we decided to go with this video because when we looked in the description, it says that he is actually, I already knew that he was schooled in England, but it turns out he married an American teacher. So I think he probably knows quite a bit about the American school system at this point. And obviously because he went in with the British school system growing up, I'm guessing that he knows quite a bit about the similarities and the differences about the British and American education systems.
Yeah, it should be a well-rounded perspective. And he's a little older, so I feel like a lot of the videos are from younger people.
Which is good. It's a different...
Which is good, but...
And we want to do some of those too.
Yeah, but I think it's good to get...
different sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's been forever since I've been in the American school system. Not compared to say my mom or something, but it's been a very long time. So like schools today are different than they were when I was going, when I was going to school, we didn't have laptops and tablets and all this. And now everybody's got their own tablet and stuff like that.
That makes me wonder, because here it has changed drastically from even the time I was in school to now. So I'm wondering if it's that dramatic in the UK.
Yeah, I do.
Because I feel like maybe it's a more American thing that's changed so much, but maybe not. I don't know. With technology, maybe it's everywhere.
All I know is they don't even generally carry books anymore.
Yeah, at least here.
Yeah, here it's like they just have their laptops, and it's just crazy. And, I guess it makes sense. It's where technology's gone. It's not going backwards, so it makes sense, but it's just it's so different, Yeah. I mean, when I was in school, nobody even had cell phones. Well, I had a flip phone.
And a beeper.
I had a beeper. Yeah, I had a beeper at one point, but... yeah, guys, so I think this is going to be very interesting to see some of the differences between the American and British school system. So far, I think I literally have only done one video, and it was about some general just stuff about the British school system. It was a very short video, learned a few basic things, but even that video was maybe a year ago or so. So, so I don't know a lot, and Lizzie don't know anything about the British school system.
No, not about the British. It's interesting though, because not to ramble like you do, but when I first started school, I went to a public school up until I was in, I think, my junior year of high school. And then I went to
I thought it was sophomore.
It was my junior and senior years of high school. I went to a boarding school on a college campus. And then after that, I went to college for a little bit. And then I went to a community college. So I have kind of a mixed experience as far as the education system in the U.S. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it compares.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, enough rambling from us, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in here and check out the 8 ways British and American education systems are very different.
Before we get underway, some disclaimers. Britain is made up of 3 countries: England, Scotland and Wales, while the UK also includes Northern Ireland. Because each country has a separate education system operating under a different government, comparing British and American approaches could take as long as a doctoral program.
Interesting.
Therefore, when it comes to Britain, I'm going to focus on the country of my own schooling, England. Okay. For more details on the other countries, see my links in the description. Furthermore, some of the finer details of US education can vary by state, school district, and school.
Yeah, that is true. So it's not just when you compare British schools to American schools, and how he's talking about in Scotland and Wales, and obviously Northern Ireland would be different as well. That's technically UK, not Britain, but they would have different school system. But it's also the same in the US. Every single state has a different school system. So I'm hoping what I get from this video, or what we get from this video, is British school systems talking about I hope most of this is similar in all the different countries within the whole UK.
I was just gonna say, even if it's in the same state, there's bigger cities in the state who are the schools are totally different.
That's true.
They have metal detectors and stuff, and
smaller communities have different things.
Have that, so it's totally different depending on where you.
Very different. Okay.
So for some things in today's video, there will be exceptions that prove the rule. Basically, there's going to be a part 2. Ahead of his election victory in 1997, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair summed up his political priorities with 3 words: education, education, education. The problem was, he didn't specify in what order. Schools in England date back to about the year 598. They were introduced by Augustine of Canterbury, who, like many in the 6th century, resembled a sketch of somebody from the 6th century. On the other hand, the first public school in America was the Boston Latin School. It was modelled after a grammar school in Boston, England, and among its notable alumni was Benjamin Franklin. History notes that he didn't actually graduate and quit the school at the age of 10, and he didn't even have a Nintendo Switch. Fast forward to 2020 and today's kids haven't got a clue where the word fast forward comes from. But also those kids, like us before them, are cogs in an educational machine that has been worked and refined for hundreds of years. Except on either side of the pond, that machine is a different make and model.
Well, I don't know how schools are in America today. I know that it's still similar, but like when I was in school, they were still... It was so outdated the way everything's done because they're training you to simply go work a job. They're training you to go work like
for someone else.
It was set up in the way it was set up for factory workers, basically. You know, American schools were originally made to basically put people through and create workers instead of bringing out the creativity of kids and things like that. And I hope that's changed some today.
I'm sure it has a little, but I think the bones are still there, and I think it's still a big part of our school system, unfortunately.
Like it's this rigidness that I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the rigidness. I like for schools to be very open and for kids to be able to make their own choices and be independent. Just like I'm not a fan of homework. I personally think do the work while you're at school and then you're done with school.
My guess is one of the biggest differences between England school systems and American is American schools don't really promote free thought or like encourage outside the box thinking. Like a lot of our tests and exams and stuff are based on memorizing facts, regurgitating information, whereas I feel like in British schools probably it's more open-ended.
I'm not sure, but
that's my guess.
In fact, English and American education is very different. As somebody who was schooled the English way but married an American teacher, I'm going to take a look at those differences. Before we look at the education life cycle, let's talk about one of the most striking visual differences between English and American schools: uniforms. In the United States, most schools don't require one. Brits like me know this because we've seen Saved by the Bell, but that doesn't give us the
Only
whole
private
picture.
schools do.
American schools do enforce a dress code. This varies by school, but in general, you might see kids wearing things like khakis and polo shirts, basically anything worn by 55-year-old professionals called Scott. There's typically no requirement that these clothes have to match from student to student. And while some private schools do require uniforms, this is the exception that proves the rule. In England, everything's flipped, and I'm not just talking about the roads. 90% of English schools require pupils to wear identical uniforms. Think Hogwarts without all the fun stuff. And what's fascinating is there's no government mandate for schools to do this. They just do it. It really makes me wish I'd put forth a more vociferous protest against the autocratic infrastructure of my school when I was 5, but we all have regrets.
So my thing is, so he said about 90%, so the other 10% just don't have dress codes then.
Yeah, that's
I'm curious where those would be at. Would those be more likely to be in the cities or the more rural areas? But yeah, like I think that's accurate. Like I didn't have a dress code where
we had dress codes.
Well, I mean, like you couldn't like wear profanity on your shirt or like
anything promoting alcohol,
promoting certain things,
skimpy clothes.
Yeah, like you couldn't wear certain like horrible things, but generally speaking, you could just go. You could go wear whatever you wanted to for the most part. When you went to boarding school, did you have a dress code?
No.
No, not really.
Not at the boarding school.
Not even at the boarding school. That's surprising. All right. Does that surprise you that they have?
No, because I feel like anything I've ever seen in regards
they all
to
wear
British
those
culture,
like
it's pretty
like almost like suits or
pretty
something.
much a known fact.
Yeah. So that is a question I have. So if they're wearing these uniforms, does the school provide those, or do you have to pay for those? And then
I bet you probably get like
you saw what they showed here, right? Like you got that jacket and the tie and the white undershirt and
do they
and
pay
the
to go to
slacks.
school? They don't pay, do they?
Oh, I don't
you
know.
Pay?
Do you pay?
Is it free? Is it like our public school system where it's?
I'm guessing it probably
you
is.
pay for,
I mean,
like,
think about it. If they've got the NHS and healthcare is paid for,
So then
I'm
my
guessing
guess
school
is
goes
you
too.
probably get like 1 or 2 uniforms
Yeah.
provided, and then anything beyond that you probably have to buy.
You would at least need
replace it.
You would at least need a minimum 2 because you'd have to wash them. You couldn't, wear the same one throughout
One
the week.
thing, then any on top of that you would have to purchase.
Yeah,
probably.
right.
It's true that both countries employ a numbering system to denote a child's educational development. In England, this is measured by year, and in America, by grade. And there's a slight difference in how this plays out. England's numbering system is always 1 higher than America's. So, for example, English kids in year 2 are the same age as American kids in the 1st grade. And this is the same all the way up to year 13/12th grade. This doesn't mean that English schools randomly hold children back a year. It just means that the English year 1 serves the same purpose as America's kindergarten.
Okay.
On the whole, English and American kids attend school between about 5 and 18, but that's not the entire story. Even before all of this, there's a 2-year warm-up session.
Preschool.
Between 3 and 5, when children still can't do easy stuff like order pizza or filter spreadsheets, parents in both countries have them sent off to something called preschool. And instead of getting punished for their abject lack of ability, they're rewarded with free playtime. Madness. Except in England, we don't normally call it preschool. This period is broken up into what is known as nursery and reception.
Reception?
Confusingly, reception year is technically the 1st year of school and year 1 is the 2nd year. Among other things, this explains why I'm so bad at maths.
So
Yeah, I'm not going to remember.
He said both countries send their kids off
To preschool.
and
Before kindergarten.
I think that's generally speaking that's only if both parents are working in the U.S.
I mean, it really just depends. Some families do it regardless.
I mean, some do. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's like he made it sound like it was something that every family across the board did in the U.S., and that's definitely not the case.
No.
I would say that the people I know, I don't think about my sister. Raven hasn't, but anyway, both my sisters, us. I mean, I think that is it tends to be a thing that happens when both parents are working.
It's more likely.
Yeah. I went to preschool off and on. My mom worked and then she didn't. And when she didn't, I was not in preschool. It just depended on when she was working. Did you go to preschool?
I didn't go to preschool.
You just started at kindergarten.
Yeah.
And you were because your grandma and whatever was around.
Yeah.
That was the same for me, except I think I actually went to, I don't even think it was preschool. I went to daycare.
Yeah. Which honestly is kind of the same.
I think I went from 2 to 3 or something like that. And then from 3 to 6 or whatever it was. Because I was almost 6 when I entered kindergarten because my birthday was later in the year. So I had to wait another year. But yeah. So I spent a year, I think, in some sort of preschool daycare. Otherwise, I was with my mom.
Yeah.
In America, the school where children advance to next is known as elementary, but to English people, that's just a word that Sherlock Holmes uses when he wants to be condescending. This period of education is where children from the ages of about 6 to 11 are first introduced to the broad range of knowledge they'll need to succeed in life. So, handling basic arithmetic, developing spelling ability, and explaining grass stains. In England, schools handling this period of primary education are known as primary schools. But in America, primaries are a series of state elections for nominating a party candidate, which occur roughly every week forever. And then there's the average class size. In the US, the average class size for self-contained elementary classes is...
Oh, I was going to try to guess. 22. What is it in the UK?
This is the number of students per average per class?
Yeah, at primary school, I think is what you're talking about.
Is about 22. Just saying that out loud, I can already hear the laughter from teachers in states where the average is much higher.
Yeah, it does.
For instance, Utah, where it's 27. As it happens, though, 27 is the national average for English primary schools.
Wow.
This was even the case when I was at school back in 1782.
1782.
In the United States, middle school is an alternate dimension that exists between elementary school and high school education. This dark underworld of sorcery is where teachers become locked in a battle of wits against a hive mind of monsters known as 8th graders. The average class size for departmentalized instruction is about 25, which only adds an extra layer to this already cruel hellscape. In England, it goes like this. The upside down is known generally as secondary school. Mercifully, the average class size is about 22, but while this nightmarish period of education,
how does that
as
change?
with the United States, roughly encompasses the age of 11 to 14, it doesn't end there. In England, it drags on for another 2 years, coinciding age-wise with America's freshman and sophomore years of high school, which, by the way, brings us on to this.
So that's interesting. So how does if you've got, say, I don't remember what it was, 25 students to begin, no, he said 27 was the average for England, right? How does it go from, you're in primary school and you've got 27 students in a class, how does it all of a sudden drop to 22 if the same students have continued going up? Has that many students failed?
No, I would say maybe it's more middle school.
Maybe there's more teachers or more middle schools. Yeah, maybe.
And more teachers, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But for me, it was kindergarten through 5th grade would be considered elementary. And then 6th grade, I went to a school all by itself, which is
rare. I don't think that's...
Which was middle school for me. I had one year, 6th grade. And then junior high, which is what some people also call middle school, was 7th and 8th grade, and then high school was 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
I feel like most places, though, isn't middle school 6th, 7th, and 8th?
I think so. Yeah, because...
And elementary school is kindergarten through 5th?
Yeah, it was just in my situation, for some reason, I went to one school that was only 6th graders, and it was just kind of odd looking back on it, but
when I was...
really interesting.
Sorry, there's a ladybug on the ceiling. Or a ladybird.
Ladybird.
When I was in elementary school, our middle school was all in the same building as the elementary. So it was all one thing.
And then you go through...
And now they've actually changed it. But
well, then you go through, like, you went through some double doors and you're in your high school, right? Right?
Yeah, but it's a scary transition, like going from elementary school and not really having the middle school transition to a high school building.
Yeah. But you basically... technically were in the same building for your entire, like, for whether you're elementary, middle, or high school.
Yeah, just different sections.
Just different sections separated by double doors. That's crazy. Yeah. But how many people did you have in your...
It was a small school.
Right.
I didn't graduate from that school, but...
Right. How many was in the graduating...
The graduating class for my year was probably like, I don't even know, like 40, 50 kids.
Yeah, it was pretty small. Yeah. I think mine was, I don't know, in the hundreds, couple hundred.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
Yes, high school. In the United States, this is a period of education from the ages of about 14 to 18. After freshman and sophomore year comes grade 11 or junior year and grade 12, senior year. This is typically when the students begin their development into humans, but it's also when most students take their SATs, a series of tests to determine readiness for college. These are not to be confused with the English SATs or SATs, which are assessments taken by 7 and 11-year-olds. In England, it is a similar process, but by a different name. And before keyboard warriors like Uncle Toby start writing in all caps that we have high schools in the UK, I know we do. But to keep things simple, that same period of schooling is typically structured like this. Age-wise, the last 2 years of secondary school are to England what freshman and sophomore years are to America.
Okay.
This is when pupils across the country take GCSE tests in all their subjects to determine suitability
Year 10 and 11.
for further qualifications. Meanwhile, the English age equivalents of junior and senior year take place in what is known as sixth form or college. This is the point in education where we stop wearing uniforms and start dressing like John Travolta. It's also where we study 2 or 3 chosen specialised subjects as part of our A-levels. For me, this was English, history and theatre studies because that's how you become a YouTube sensation. The results of these tests determine your suitability for university. They're often compared to America's advanced placement exams. But while
I like this better. It's much more confusing to me.
A little bit.
Because we didn't grow up that way,
Right.
but I like the concept more.
So you got... So there's only primary and secondary school up until grade year
11.
12 and 13.
Well,
They're year 12 and 13.
Yeah.
And then you basically have something called sixth form or college. And that is 11 and 12. So is that out? So they're no longer going...
12 and 13, I thought. 10
Yeah,
and 11 was second.
Yeah, year 12 and 13, that's what I mean. And it would be our 11th and 12th grade. And so are they no longer in the same building with...
Yeah, where does this take place?
Yeah, like are you completely separated and that's why you're no longer having to wear the uniform? Or are they literally, are you in the same building with the other secondary schoolers?
I bet it's something.
But they just happen to wear uniforms and you don't have to. But that wouldn't make any sense, would it? Because then it's like completely breaking up this
I
stuff.
don't think
So
it's the same thing.
yeah, I think, let us know in the comments, guys, but I think when you go to the, was it sixth form? How did they say that?
Upper sixth.
How did he say that? I don't, where was that? I don't even know where it was. I can't remember where, I don't see it, but it was college basically. So let us know, guys, is when college, the year 12 and 13, is that in a completely different building, different school than the kids that are in like year 10 and 11? I'm guessing it is, but he didn't really cover that. But I'm guessing you go to college, it's different things. So
while both help to determine a student's path in higher education, they're not entirely the same thing. That being said, higher education does come with its own differences. In the US, college means something entirely different. It's the general catch-all term for an
University
institution of higher education.
That's true.
In England,
You got
this is referred
community
to
college and
as
stuff.
university or uni because everything devolves into slang at some point. Of course, specific institutions in both countries play hard and fast with this rule. See, for example, Harvard University and Imperial College, London. For American students, a bog-standard bachelor's degree takes 4 years to complete, while in England, unless I, somehow skipped a year, which is entirely plausible in hindsight, a bachelor's degree typically lasts 3 years. Upon completion, students in both countries can graduate with honours. The difference, though, is how this is printed on a degree transcript. In England, Bachelor of Arts, or BA, might be followed by the word honours or ons, because see previous comment about slang. In America, they're all about their Latin, so honours are signified by phrases like cum laude, magna cum laude, cumulonimbus, or cactus priculus. Like any good teacher, I've left the best bit until the end of class. It wouldn't be America and England if they weren't separated by a common language. So let's take a rapid-fire look at the differences in educational terminology. As we've already seen, you've got grade versus year, but you've also got semester versus term. While America has its students, England has its pupils. Whether or not they attend elementary school or primary school, high school or college or uni, there's a good chance they'll have to study math or maths. And in England, we don't take tests, we take exams. In England, a rubber erases a mistake. In America, it prevents one. And speaking of words that have different meanings, let's finish today's class and/or module by talking about 2 words that perennially cause confusion. Public school. In the United States, a public school is one that is publicly funded and free for students to attend. In 2016, more than 70% of students were publicly educated in the US, as opposed to privately educated. In England, a public school is something different. In the late 1800s, the term public was used in the sense of these schools being open to pupils of any locality, denomination, or paternal trade. Basically, anyone whose parents could afford it. So, an English public school is a private school.
What?
A
Public school is a private school.
Is called a state school, which has nothing to do with
school.
state
It's a public
universities
school.
in America. It's all confusing, and I've lost my train of thought. Saved by the bell. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me. Let me know in the comments below if you've attended a school in either America or the United Kingdom, and you have some other suggestions for entries for part 2. If you like the sound of my voice.
All right, guys, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
I remember a little bit of that when I previously did learn a little bit about British schools, but it's definitely continued my education on some of these differences. But what stuck out to you the most about this?
Honestly, the public school versus private.
Public school is private school.
Yeah, that surprises me. And then a state school is like the general.
Well, generally, if I think of state school and public school, that makes sense. Because the state, think about when you call the state.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think that, there's definitely some differences. The uniforms and just the terminology is completely different in a lot of ways. I would love to see...
I want to see more in depth about curriculum. Like, I want to know what's different there. And I feel like there's a lot. Yeah.
Let us know in the comments, guys, if you have any interesting videos, ideas for us to check out when it comes to other education or school related stuff when it's British versus American, or even if it's just in the UK in general. Curriculum is one of those things, like you said, that we would like to check out. Not really sure. I guess we could, I don't know. We'd have to, I don't really know what to look for unless just US versus UK curriculum or something like that. But
I don't even know if there's a video on that.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. I would really like to check that out too, see what the differences are there. I know there's got to be numerous differences. This was interesting. You got anything you want to add? All right. Thank you so much for stopping by, guys. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments and suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey to discover our British and Irish ancestry. Till next time, guys. Peace.
Bye.